friends. Welcome to the Mobile Monger podcast, where we go behind the scenes in the cheese world to chat with the people making, selling, or distributing your favorite specialty food products. I'm your host, Janae Muha, certified cheese professional, longtime cheesemonger, and producer advocate. Many businesses fail within the first 5 years, so when a place surpasses that number, it's cause for celebration. We're celebrating Urban Stead Cheese's 6 years of operation. Based in Cincinnati, Ohio, Scott and Andrea Robbins gutted a vacant building to create an urban creamery. From cork to cloth-bound cheddar, they're building community one cheese at a time. In this episode, I chat with Andrea on how she made her big dream a reality.
My name is Andrea Robbins. I am the co-founder of Urban Stead Cheese alongside my husband, Scott Robbins. And like most people, I did not grow up in cheese. We all have our story of how we landed in the world of cheese. And I think, I'd like to say there was a eureka moment, but I knew that we would always be in the food space. Or at least I knew that once I met my husband, because he's been in the food and wine world for 35 years. And we've always had a huge passion for cheese, big passion for wine. He's a level 2 sommelier. And we've always, cheese is obviously, it's a no-brainer alongside beverages often. And so I think that was my first real introduction into artisanal cheese. I guess I would say that prior to him, I was familiar with pedestrian cheese, and really, and let me be clear, I'm an equal cheese opportunist. But we were really on an entrepreneurial journey of how we were going to move forward in the food space. And we were on a visit to Cowgirl Creamery in Petaluma and saw that facility and how approachable it was. And it started, like, the stars started aligning, that as two grandchildren of dairy farmers and people who love cheese and love fermentation and want to be makers, and it really clicked for us that this is something we might be able to do in Cincinnati and replicate almost a brewery model for cheese in the city and show the people of Cincinnati cheese making.
Awesome. I mean, that space in Petaluma was like super dreamy. It's kind of sad that it's
It
not
is
there
sad.
anymore, but yeah, it was such a welcoming thing for a lot of people to kind of dip their toes into like seeing cheese making for the first time. So I could understand why that would be an epiphany moment of like, oh, we could do this too.
Yep. Little did we know how significant of an undertaking it was, but it was, you're right. Welcoming is the perfect word for that facility, because it wasn't a huge commercial facility. It just really struck a note for us.
Well, I would love to. I've been to Cincinnati once, and I really enjoyed myself there, but I want you to walk me through, what does the cheese scene look like in Cincinnati? I know there's a couple shops and a couple of big guys in the area. So can you tell us what's going on in the Cincinnati cheese scene?
Absolutely. So pre-COVID, we were fortunate enough to have 3 cheesemakers in Cincinnati. We are now the remaining cheesemaker standing in Cincinnati. And to your point, we have some really phenomenal cheese shops in Cincinnati. And those look like a cut to order counter. The Rhine does a fantastic job downtown at Finley Market. And our friends Morsel and Nosh over in Northside do a great job with cheese and highlight artisanal cheese as well. And then we look at more, and there's some other smaller shops as well that I think we're all seeing a trend towards prepackaged cheese, I guess I would say. And so we're seeing a lot of that. I think that's where the rind really, really excels, is a phenomenal selection of artisanal cheese, US and international cheese selection. But a lot of the other cheese shops that we have in town are going to be more of a prepackaged approach to cheese, which is still great. And then when we look towards the bigger retailers, of course, we have the really big retailer, Kroger, and everything Kroger and Murray's is about. And so that brings people, a great deal of artisanal cheese and other cheeses to the city of Cincinnati and its people. Beyond that, when I look outside the really big retailer here, and I think most people know this, but Kroger is headquartered in Cincinnati. So when we say the big retailer, it's really the big retailer in town. And we have a lot of smaller retailers. And then in between that space, obviously Jungle Gyms is huge for Cincinnati. And it's so much more than just a grocery store. It's an experience. Pardon me. It's an experience. And if anybody's ever in Cincinnati, I highly, highly encourage folks to go to Jungle Gyms. It's really, really cool.
I'm so sad I didn't make it there the last time I was there. So just, another
Next
reason for me
time,
to come back.
you're always welcome here tonight. We would love to have you. And then just north of Cincinnati, and they'll be expanding into Cincinnati, northern Cincinnati. They're actually under construction right now, is Dorothy Lane Market, which is an incredible, incredible grocery store, founded in Dayton, Ohio. And they have 3 locations up there, and they're building a location in Cincinnati. And I would say that they are top notch in selling cheese. Their mongers do a phenomenal job. They have a really great selection of cheese, and really one of the best in the business as a grocery store model. I always use this example. My mom shops at Dorothy Lane Market, and it's pricey. So you're not getting your everyday groceries there probably, but she was looking at salsa, and she asked one of their associates what salsa he thought she should purchase. And he went and grabbed a bag of chips and opened the salsas that she was contemplating, and they stood there and tasted them and helped her make a decision. So I think that that's really an encapsulation of how that grocery store approaches their food sales and their customer relationships. And I would say they do the same thing with cheese. They're a great relationship for us. All of the places that I've talked about, Kroger, well, not Kroger, I apologize. The Rind, Morsel and Nosh, some of the smaller shops, Dorothy Lane Market, Jungle Gyms are all great customers for Urban Stead Cheese. And we're really grateful to be in their stores and working with really, really good mongers who understand cheese and how it should be cared for and how it should be sold.
That's awesome. Dorothy Lane sounds like, I'm an ex Whole Fooder. I was at Whole Foods from 2002 until 2016. Yeah,
A
something
while,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, a long time, 14 years. And that's how Whole Foods used to be back in the day, was that if a customer asked about something, you opened it up for them, you let them try it, or you tried it with them, so you were better informed. And it's really nice to kind of see that coming back around in a lot of ways, because Seattle has a couple of really nice chains. But one currently, Town and Country, I feel like is really they're really digging deeper into
Yeah.
that
And I think
aspect
it's,
of it. And I think
and
that
obviously Whole
consumers
Foods
are,
has a beautiful
they're
presence here in
dying for that
Cincinnati as well. I
connection and
didn't
that,
mean to be remiss about that.
ability to
Um,
connect with the people that
but
they're buying their food from, and not
it
just
goes
being
back
like,
to, and I mean,
someone
you
who's
and
like,
I
I
both
don't know
know this.
what
We all
that
know
is. I
this in
don't
the
know what's
cheese
going
world,
on. So
the value of a sample. If you have a good product and you sample people on it, 9 times out of 10, I find that they're going to buy it. If I can get somebody at my cheese counter and they are here for cheddar, it happened this past weekend. Somebody came in for cheddar and I'm like, oh, try this 2-year aged Gouda. And they bought the half pound of Gouda. So opening a product and trying it with somebody, and it's just that connection point is really, really unique. And I think to your point, something we're all seeking. That's right. Yeah, I mean, it is sad because,
Absolutely.
Ohio
So you
is
mentioned that
a
the
huge
Urbanstead
dairy
is like the
state.
only
Ohio's
cheesemakers
are
left in
also the
Cincinnati.
largest
Can you
Swiss
talk a
cheese
little bit
producing
about
state in the
that
US, which is all
sadness,
in
I
like
guess?
Northeast Ohio. And I think we have, if I recall correctly, we have 31 creameries in Ohio. Don't quote me on that. I think that's correct. And we have a strong Ohio Cheese Guild that continues to grow. I mean, even in the 6 years that we've been in business as of this week, last week. Yep. This week, last week. Last week was or like over the past 2 weeks, it's been a lot of anniversaries. Anyway, it is sad. It's sad because we've lost our local camaraderie
Whoop, whoop.
of our other fellow cheesemakers. It also impresses how fragile things are. And it's something that we're keenly aware of. I talk to our customers and they're like, oh, I used to buy cheese from this guy. And, we talk about it and we use it as a platform for reminding our customers and people that we talk to about how important it is. If you love something, support it. We all know in the cheese world, cheeses go extinct and it happens for different reasons. And to see a fellow cheesemaker and entrepreneur have to make a tough decision it's tough.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons, I mean, there's so many reasons why I love this industry, but that's also one of the reasons why, like, in some other industries, they would see that as like, great, like this is better for me because now I can sell more. But in the cheese world, it doesn't, I mean, I know that there are people who feel that way, but ultimately the more people that you have in these industries, the more you can bounce ideas off of them, the more you have that camaraderie, like you were saying. And it is a really sad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We used to do events, the three Cincinnati cheesemakers, and it was Lamppost Cheese and Meyer DeSano, and then Urban Stead Cheese. And we all made really different styles of cheeses. Cecilia at Lamppost used to make Spanish style cheeses, and Eduardo, who owned Meyer DeSano, made wash drying a lot of wash drying, some bloomy young cheeses, fragile cheeses. And then, of course, our lineup of cheeses, which were, we make an aged Gouda, we make our cheddar, we make quark, like all the three makers, they were all very different styles of cheeses. And that was really, really special to sit down with a group of customers or, at an event and talk about the three different cheese companies that all looked quite different and our cheeses looked different. And it was really, really special. And you're right. I there wasn't an ounce of a good feeling when they closed. We all know the saying, "Rising tides lift all ships," and I just think the more good cheese that people are eating is a positive for all of us.
absolutely. And kind of in talking about the different styles that all of those cheesemakers make, I would love to talk about your start of Urban Stead Cheese and like what kind of like market research did you do? What did you do to basically pinpoint the cheeses that you wanted to make?
Great question, because as you know, we Janae, we tried to make those, we didn't try, we had to make some of those decisions before we even identified our building. And where we were going to do this, and then what did we need from an equipment standpoint. Quark was a no-brainer. And that's because Cincinnati is such a German town. And we knew there wasn't a lot of artisanal quark production in the US, and definitely not in the Midwest. We'll call Ohio the Midwest, Great Lakes region. And so quark was an easy one for us. And also, we knew we needed a balance of, we knew we were going to long age cheese. And so what could we do to generate some cash flow from milk in a shorter turn? And so quark was a low-hanging fruit for us. And also due to its versatility. My husband Scott, knew he wanted to make a cloth-bound cheddar. From a market research perspective, we know that cheddar is the second most consumed cheese in the US by Americans, behind mozzarella. And so we knew we wanted to create cheeses that were already in high demand by consumers. And so cheddar was a definite, and a cloth-bound cheddar was definitely what we wanted to do, because our goal is old world artisanal style cheeses, and to make them in a, as traditional way as we can, in a way that it works for urban Stead cheese. Gouda, I feel like we see a lot of young Gouda in the US. So we really wanted to do a long-aged Gouda. And we wanted to do a natural rind Gouda, which I think sets our Gouda apart. It's definitely a lot of work, but I think it pays dividends. And then, those are two large format cheeses. So then we were looking like something a little bit smaller in scale in terms of the size of the wheel. And we like the idea of a tome. Tome quickly, I don't really remember why tome came to form. But we're in the neighborhood of Evanston, and we really like the fact that we're able to call our tome to Evanston and give a nod to the neighborhood that we're in. And so that was really special. We've learned a lot about that cheese. We used to make a lot of that cheese. We don't make as much. We're all Jersey milk. And we quickly found that making tome in the winter with Jersey milk is challenging. So we only make tome in the summer now. Obviously, cheese curds are a no-brainer when you're making cheddar. So that's kind of a by proxy cheese, I would almost say. That's kind of where we sat, Janae, at that moment. And then I started to get uncomfortable that it was going to be at least 6 months before we had any aged cheese. And so we were going to come out of the gate with quark and cheese curds. And I'm like, what can we make that's not a cooked curd cheese? Because we wanted to be able to make it alongside our other cheeses. And what's something that we can bring to market a little bit quicker? And that's how we landed on our camembert. And so we don't distribute a lot of our camembert. Most of it's used here at the shop. We do a little local distribution, and we do it in a little 3-ounce format. They're little baby camembert style cheeses. And so that's how we landed on camembert, is because we only do about 180 pounds of milk a week on camembert, and we make it just about every week. And that accomplishes our goals most of the time. Every once in a while, we need a little bit more camembert and we'll do a double batch, but camembert is kind of a side project.
I love that, because I think that you definitely looked at, because aging cheddar and a 2-year Gouda, that's, money in the bank, but it isn't really doing much for you right off the bat. So just kind of having to make those choices of like, what is going to be the quickest return on investment. I also really just love it when people have like smaller cheeses that are just kept like locally, that there are those pieces that are done nationally or whatever, have a bigger imprint, but then they have the special things that just kind of like you can only get there. I love that stuff, but that's I know some people don't. Some people want, like, I want to be able to get everything all the time. I'm not that person.
Yep. That makes me happy to hear that. The other thing about the quark is the versatility of it allows us, and we knew that this was going to allow us to make some other cheeses from it. And so, again, going back to that cash flow aspect, we make an Ohio Valley pimento. We make our beer cheese from it. We make seasonal quarks from it that really don't leave our shop. We have our 6-year anniversary party this weekend, and I'm working on a pickle quark and with a dill pickle that made by one of our wholesale partners is a pickle maker, the Pickled Pig. If you're in Cincinnati, we'll go there. Sandwiches are, oh my God, his sandwiches are so good. And he uses our cheese. So we're bringing his pickles in to do a pickle quark. And yeah, so I agree with you. I think it's fun when there's things that you can only get when you go to the location. But you are right that I hear sometimes, why can't I get that cheese? I'm like, we just don't make enough of it. And I don't even know how to distribute a 3-ounce camembert. Like, yeah,
It may not be the same when you get it. That's why.
that's right. Yeah, it might be a puddle.
Yeah, it'll just taste better when you come and visit. And then it's also like part of the experience of traveling and getting to experience things that you can't get back home. Because I mean, that's the thing for me. When I travel, I don't want to do the same things that I do at home because that's what home is for. And I have that all the time. I want to try new stuff.
Yep. And that's kind of, I mean, we go back into how did we get into the world of cheese, and it's a circle back with that. But whenever Scott and I travel, we seek out what's the local cuisine, who's the local cheesemaker, the local cheese shop. And we did that. I mean, we've done that for 15, 20 years plus. And that continued to pique our curiosity of the cheese industry. And so I agree with you. I just think I don't want to do what I can do day to day when I'm at home. I want new experiences and unique experience. And that's what I think also makes memories.
It also changes your palate in a lot of ways too. I mean, there have been experiences like my first time going to Switzerland and going into the Gruyere caves and,
Mm.
going to France and going into Waschwein caves or whatever. That changed my palate, where some cheeses that I wasn't as into before, I became super into. It's just, I, and I've seen it I've seen it happen with other people that I've traveled with too, that weren't as into cheese, and they were alongside our travels, our cheesy travels. And through the experiences and being in those places, it changes what they like and what they're open to trying. And it's just such a cool thing to just do. I don't know. I love traveling for cheese. So
Well, and just travel in general. Traveling with cheese is the added bonus. But travel in general, I think it's one, if you can do it and if you're there's obviously challenges to travel. I think it's a privilege. And I think, being able to expand your understanding of the world and through food is really, really incredible.
it's such an easy way to tap into the local community too. So
Yeah,
it's an easy access point.
that's right.
So on your recent Cutting the Curd episode, you talked a little bit about how the building that you guys had to completely gut it. And I think that that is a really interesting conversation, but I want to talk about it from a financial standpoint. And this might be a little bit personal, but I want to know like how you guys came up with the money to like
Yeah.
completely gut a building and then all of the equipment. Like, did you utilize local grants? Were there things that because most of my audience is cheesemongers and people who are looking
Mhm.
to do these sort of things. So I would love to have a little bit of insight of how you guys kind of got the capital to do what you did.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So it, when we were looking for a building, we, you know, there was characteristics that we were looking for, and one of them was what I would call looking for a building in an up and coming neighborhood. And that had a lot of benefits for us, but there was a financial benefit. And, there's an upside and a downside to that. We are in a neighborhood that has really grown around us in the last 6 years and continues to grow. But because it was a little bit depressed at the time, we got a really good financial deal on buying an 8,300 square foot building with a parking lot. And I mean, I'm not anybody can go look it up on the auditor's website what I bought this building for. We bought this property, Janae, for $135,000. Yes. Now, let's be clear, it didn't have any cheese equipment.
Yeah.
It was a vacant, yeah, it was a vacant building. But I think we always talk about location, location, location. And for us, location was finding a good location to make cheese, but also doing it where we weren't going to buy a building that was what I would call pristine. If we bought a building with perfect HVAC and perfect plumbing and everything, we'd have had to rip a lot of that out to create what we needed in terms of aging rooms, because probably 50%, I'm going to say 40 to 50% of our building now is aging rooms. And so that was the first piece of it, is not being in over our head from a acquisition standpoint of real estate. The other piece of that, and this is a huge operational boost for us, is because we were able to utilize existing real estate and then do our construction with Silver LEED certification, it has allowed us to have a 15-year, 75% tax abatement. So that really, really helps with the first, I mean, of course, we paid a lot of money to go through LEED certification, but I was able to sit down and run numbers and know that we were going to have that paid back in the first 2 years and then benefit from our real estate tax abatement. We call it 100% tax abatement, but school taxes are never going to be abated, nor should they. And so that's where the 75% tax abatement comes in. When it came to build out and cheese equipment and everything that it takes to make cheese, we have a really, really good relationship with our bank. I wish that I had been better. I wish I had been more well versed in grants at the time. And I guess I would say that's a knock on me that I didn't dig into that more. In fact, there's a couple grants, and I'm writing a grant as we speak, for some equipment to help us increase aging, increase distribution, increase milk processing. DBIA grant, they expanded that to include Ohio 2 years ago or last year. I can't remember. That's coming out of Wisconsin. And so there's different pieces to that grant, and I wish that we had utilized it in the get-go, but we didn't. But now I use it for continuing to expand our business. There's also the resilient, I think it's RFSI grant through the Ohio Department of Agriculture. Let's see. I'm looking at my email as we speak because I have all of these, but those are really good grant opportunities. And while we didn't use them initially, we used traditional. It's something that we will continue to use from an acquisition or from a growth perspective The other piece of that I would say, Janae, is we really employed an approach, and this is kind of the way I like to do things. If you look at Urban Stead 6 years ago when we opened, from an equipment standpoint, from our aging rooms, even from our tasting room, we didn't have a ton of stuff. We have I didn't know everything I would need. So I didn't want to just buy stuff to have it and then maybe have stuff we didn't need, but then, or maybe not have the right exactly what we need. When we first started putting cheese in the aging rooms, we had bread trays, bread racks stacked with wood on top of them. And that was our aging shelves because we didn't know what we wanted our aging rooms to look like exactly. And we actually built shelves and then we didn't like them. So we took them down and redesigned. And we continue to grow our aging rooms as our aging needs increase. And I think that's a big, I didn't even have all of my retail shelves built out. I didn't have all my decorations. I mean, I operated with really, really thin capital. I also, full disclosure, we opened without a credit card. If I didn't have the money for it, we didn't buy it because I didn't want us to get out over our skis right out of the gate.
Oh, that accounting
We
background is coming in handy,
it
right?
is, yes. But I just, we operate really conservatively, and if my theory was, I mean, obviously, we have a lot of debt because of equipment, and we have really nice equipment. We're really, really fortunate. We have a horizontal pneumatic press that's pricey, but how do you make a 20-pound wheel of cloth bound cheddar and do it well? And we also knew when we built the facility, we really wanted, everybody had told us, you're going to outgrow your aging space so quickly, faster than you think you will. So scale up. You're going to feel like you're building more than you need. And I'm really glad that we got that feedback because while we put in a lot of initial investment on day one, we've been able to grow into our space. And the other piece that was really critical for us, Janae, was to own this property. What we did not want was, and we looked at buildings that we probably looked at 35 different spaces for this. And there was a really phenomenal building that I think we would have loved, but we couldn't buy it. We were going to be a tenant. And I could not wrap my head around the fact that we might build out all this space, have our cheese aging, and have somebody else control our destiny. And again, I mean, we just found a really good building that was right for the picking. It had sat vacant for 15 years. And so it was a good piece of real estate opportunity.
I love everything about that because I think giving yourself the room to grow and not just being like, oh, I'm just going to buy everything. I mean, I'm really bad at that sort of stuff because anytime I've ever moved, I'm like, I want all new things. Like, no, you don't need all new things. I can just take the things that I already had. But outside of that, like, I just, waiting until you find out that this is actually what I want. It's long term. And since you own the building, you know that this is a long-term thing and no one can take that away from you. And I love everything about that. But thank you for being so transparent because I know that talking about these financial things can be a little taboo sometimes, but I also,
Yeah.
like I said, I think a lot of people that listen to the podcast and in our industry are looking to figure out how to make something like what you guys are doing.
Yeah. And
Um,
I mean, it's financial, you're right, it is taboo, and people ask questions and customers are like, how much did you spend on this? I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you that. But you know, you and I talked about it before we started really live recording. This is a really special industry, and I think that being able to talk transparently about these types of things is important in helping other people think about how they're going to do it and if it makes sense for them. And sometimes, you put the business plan together and you say this doesn't make sense. And another piece of advice that somebody gave us early on was it's going to take at least 5 years to make money out of your aging rooms. And boy, has that been true. And throw 2 years of COVID in there for a new cheesemaker who was just starting to release aged cheeses. I would say 5+ years to really start to see a cash flow out of the aging rooms. So that's something that you really, if I were looking at somebody and giving them advice, is to find a good balance of younger cheeses. And if you do want to do some really long aged cheese, have some things that are going to start moving some money sooner than those long aged cheeses. Also, maybe don't make all big format cheeses. I know my team would love to be flipping smaller cheeses.
Well, and I've also heard feedback too from people behind the counter talking about how movement can be hard on those larger format cheeses. So having a variety of sizing can be really helpful when you're talking about a bottom line from a cut to order counter. So
That's
I
right.
think I think that that is also a good thing to think about for those out there that are looking into possibly making cheese at some point.
I agree with you. I find that shops like our Tome for that reason. It's like a 7 to 8 pound wheel. It's really manageable. And I find that even in my cheese case, we don't sell other cheeses at our shop. It's entry point for urban Stead cheese introduction for our customers. But, my 20-pound cylindrical truckle of cheddar manages in my case very differently than my 7-pound wheel of Tome.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
them both. Let me be clear, but they're different. Yeah.
Yeah. With our industry too, in the sharing of information, like there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. Like people have been opening cheese shops and whatnot. So like, why not share that information so somebody else doesn't have to go through the hardships? Like you said, you weren't as familiar with grants and whatnot when you opened. But even now, 6 years in, you haven't that knowledge of the grants that are out there now. So you can also take that information and hand it over to someone else who might be asking of like, here's what we're doing now, even if you didn't have it then. So I think that that is an important piece of all of this too, of just that's why sharing information is so great.
Well, and I would even say, Janae, if somebody's listening to this and they have a question or like, we're an open book for the most part.
I just what's next for Urban Stead? What are you guys like? Are you just gonna keep trucking along and just doing your thing, or you guys got some new fun stuff happening, or
Well, 2024, when we sat down and kind of looked at what it needs to happen in 2024 for Urban Stead Cheese, I a major priority this year is to increase distribution. We've been prior to 23 pretty local. I'd say like the Cleveland and Nashville corridor has been our strength. Obviously, Cincinnati's our strongest market. Second half of 2023, we started to get distribution East Coast, a little bit West Coast, Bay Area. And we're right now working with our current distributors to grow distribution, but also for new distributors, markets that we're not able to currently access. Really also growing our I call it direct to cheese shop, and really working on selling our cheese. I think for the first time over the last 6 to 9 months, I feel really confident in our inventory, but also in the quality of our inventory. And that's a product of our amazing team and the hours that they spend doing affinage in the aging rooms. So distribution growth is the highest priority. I want to make a new cheese. Uh, my husband's going to kill me when he hears this.
We love secrets around here.
Yeah. I don't know what that looks like because milk has been down a little bit at our milk source. Normally we're like 9,000 to 9,100 pounds of milk a week. We've been closer, somewhere between, I'm going to say 7,500 and 8,500 on average the last 6 months. Getting our team rebuilt, we had a little bit of attrition. All good things, people taking new opportunities and going back to school and stuff, but we really need to rebuild it and strengthen our team so that then we can start layering on more. And that's really a business model, I don't know, that Scott and I employ is, if we're going to do something, we're going to make sure that our team's ready for it, our cheese is ready for it, that he and I are ready for it. And we're not going to do something if we can't do it well, because we know we can do more damage than can be gained if we try to take something on that we're not able to execute. So to that extent, we will also be working to finalize our direct to consumer, to a retail consumer, not the cheese shop, but it's something we've got most of our ducks in a row for. Working on like the technical side of it, on how you execute that, from a shipping standpoint, from all those pieces. But that is something that we'll see in 2024, and I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. Lots of fun stuff then,
Yeah,
basically. And that just means
it
we'll
is.
all
Yeah.
see you a lot more then.
I hope so. Yes. Yeah, I really want to get our cheese out there. I feel like it's, yeah, Janae, I didn't even know how to like properly ship a wheel of cheese and feel confident about it, 5 years ago, even 4 years ago, and how to do it economically. And I've got my hands around that now. And so if anybody out there wants cheese, give us a call. Yeah, I can ship.
Well, I got a few ending questions that I always ask everybody. So we'll just do our little quick round, as I call it, even though it never ends up being quick, and that's okay. We like that. But what is your current cheese crush?
Mm, my current cheese crush, probably Perry Stead. Yeah, Yoav's doing some incredible things. And I am in admiration of how he's pushing the boundaries. And obviously, he's a fellow urban cheesemaker. And so that makes me crush a little harder. Um, and he's also an incredible cheerleader. And yeah, I'd
I,
say, yeah,
I love all of that. He's such a fun person, and yeah, I think a great cheerleader for the cheese industry, and just really doing
yes,
some really fun, innovative stuff.
agreed. Yeah. And I think I like, he's trying, that's the one thing I'm trying to get us to do is, how do we play with some smaller batch stuff? Like, we don't have to do everything in a huge batch. And that's, when we talk about a new cheese, that's kind of what I'm trying to think about, is how do I pull off like some wheels and treat them different, maybe. So I think
Yeah.
he's doing a really good job at that.
All right. What is your favorite pairing?
I love a good aged Gouda and like a peanut brittle. That's a kind of a treat pairing, I guess I would say. More everyday pairing, This is so, there's nothing I love more than a bite of our Misty River Camembert, a slice of strawberry, a little bit of jam, and an almond. It's the perfectly balanced bite for me. So I really, really love that. But then, I don't know, Janae, that's like picking a favorite child.
I know.
Um, but
I
those
like
are
the
some,
go-to though. That's always like,
yeah.
what are you usually reaching for?
Yeah. If I need a cheese snack and I'm here at the shop, that's um that camembert and a strawberry and a little bit of jam and an almond. Uh and I like a roasted salted almond. Like it hits the right notes for me.
Sounds delightful to me. And then last one, what is your best cheese memory? Like it can be not necessarily even eating cheese, but like a time that you were eating cheese with other people or just a moment that you kind of go to as like your quintessential cheese moment.
Well, it doesn't involve eating cheese. It involves cheese experience. And I would say it was 2018 ACS in Pittsburgh. And it was my first. I mean, Janae, we kind of went into this. We hadn't been to an ACS for heaven's sakes. When we, and it was the first ACS, and it just, man, did it solidify that we had made the right decision. The people, and we still had Festival of Cheese then. And I gorged on cheese, truth be told. It was just Scott and I can remember getting in the car because we were able to drive to Pittsburgh and looking at each other and just saying, this is incredible. The, we've landed in the right place. And it makes me a little teary eyed because I was starstruck, Janae. Yeah, it was. And so I can still think back to that. And when I tell people how special ACS is in the cheese community, that's the memory that lives in my brain.
Well, I love that since I'm actively involved with ACS and
Yep.
I haven't missed a conference in quite a few years. So, and Pittsburgh was a great one because I it was a smaller conference, so there's something really special about the smaller ones too that like you really get more time with people and I love the bigger ones too because you get to see everybody, but it can also be a little bit overwhelming, but I love them
Yeah.
all. What am I saying? I love
Yeah.
them all.
I'll see you in Buffalo, I presume.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. How can people find you and
Yeah.
where are they going to be able to buy cheese from online, hopefully soon?
Yes. So they can find us at urbansteadcheese.com, obviously, and that's where the direct to consumer interface will sit. Um, we would love for people to come visit us. Our tasting room is open on Friday and Saturday right now, and that's a product of we spend the rest of the week making cheese. But that being said, if you're in the cheese community and you're in Cincinnati and it's not Friday and Saturday, please reach out. We're here. And we love nothing more than seeing cheese people and interacting and connecting. So that's a great way. Obviously, our Instagram, Urban Stead Cheese, Facebook, Urban Stead Cheese. There's a Twitter account out there. I'm not very active, so don't reach out on Twitter. And I'm trying to think if there's any, and then if you're looking for our cheese on our website, there's a great resource, Find Our Cheese. And I think I do a really pretty good job of keeping it updated with all of the shops and restaurants that utilize our cheese. And that continues to grow, and that's really exciting. So those are ways to connect with Urbanstead.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation and being so transparent about all of these nitty-gritty details that are very industry specific, but I know that inquiring minds are thankful for the information.
Well, we wouldn't be here without the help, support, and from fellow makers and mentors and the cheese community. So, I just, if anybody, I by no means are we an expert. We're only 6 years old in this business, but I think ask questions and get information. And I think, to your point, if we can all share transparently, this is a challenging industry and we have the resources to help each other. And I'm absolutely honored, Janae, to have been able to talk to you today. And I appreciate your thoughtful questions because this was interesting and fun. Thank you.
I'm always so humbled by my guests' willingness to share, and this episode is no exception. Andrea allowed us a peek into how to open a business and keep it going. Thank you, Andrea. This podcast is recorded, produced, and edited by me, Janae Muha. Musical credits to my husband, Ben Muha. If you would like to continue the conversation, find me on Instagram or Facebook. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite listening platform so more people can find this podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep spreading the word of good curd.